South Korea now receives 2.5 million of foreign medical patients every year. Across Asia, governments are actively competing for them. Every major country in Asia has picked a body part and turned it into an export product. Eyes in Korea, hair in Turkey, gender reassignment procedures in Thailand, complex surgery in India. None of this happened by accident. Governments invested, built visa programs, cut taxes for foreign patients, and marketed surgery the way other countries market cars or semiconductors. The result is a $90 billion industry where your body is the product and your insecurity is the raw material. And once governments start making money from that, some very dangerous incentives begin to appear. In this video, I'll show who benefits from it and why the business model behind it is far darker than you can imagine. I'm not a journalist covering Asia from London. I run a company here in Asia, and every week I break down what's really happening in this part of the world from the inside. Hit subscribe if that sounds useful. Depending on who's counting and what they include, the global cosmetic surgery market is somewhere between $60 and $90 billion in 2026. Either way, every leading forecast suggests the market will roughly double by the mid-2030s. But what makes this industry unusual is that governments are actively trying to make it bigger. Most countries compete to attract car factories or cheap plants. South Korea, Thailand and Malaysia compete to attract patients, all using different kinds of playbooks. And to be clear, cosmetic surgery isn't evil by essence. Millions of people are perfectly happy with the result. The darker question is what happens when part of this economy becomes financially dependent on making people feel incomplete. South Korea created what they call Medical Korea, whose entire job is to get foreign patients on flights to Seoul. It handles visa facilitation, clinic accreditation, international marketing, and VAT refunds on procedures. Thailand just launched a 10-year national strategy to position itself as Asia's primary medical hub. Malaysia's Healthcare Travel Council signed a deal with AirAsia to bundle flights, hotels, and surgery into one single booking. Indonesia is building a special economic zone in Bali dedicated entirely to medical tourism. Overall, Asia-Pacific captures roughly 40% of the money that gets spent on medical travel. These governments figured out something that most people still haven't fully processed. The patient who flies in for a skin treatment or a nose job doesn't just pay the hospital bill. South Korea tracked the money in 2025. The total spending by 2 million foreign medical patients and the people who travel with them reached $8.4 billion. Only $2.2 billion went to actual medical procedures. The rest was hotels, restaurants, shopping, taxes. Every scalpel generates a small tourism economy around it, and the math is hard to argue with if you're the patient. A knee replacement in Bangkok cost around $12,000. The same procedure in the US costs $50,000. A rhinoplasty in Seoul, roughly $3,500. In Sydney, closer to $15,000. When the price gap is that wide, people get on planes. Each country ended up specializing in something different along the way. And that part didn't happen by accident. We'll get to it. But first, answer me. Why are millions of people willing to let someone break their jaw, cut their eyelids, or reshape their nose in the first place? In 2011, an economist at the University of Texas named Daniel Ammermesh published a book called Beauty Pays. He had spent years trying to measure something most people sense, but nobody puts a dollar figure on. How much does your face affect your income? His answer, after controlling for education, experience, intelligence, and every other variable he could isolate, was a shock. The best-looking third of the population earns about 5% more than average. The least attractive third earns 10 to 12% less. Over a full career, the gap adds up to roughly $230,000. Height follows the same pattern. Every additional centimeter of height is associated with about $998 more in annual family income for men. Same goes for women and BMI. A little depressing, right? But abstract enough that most people shrug them off. What happened in South Korea is what it looks like when an entire society stopped shrugging. After the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the IMF imposed restructuring, wiped out labor protections across the country. Mass layoffs flooded the job market with applicants, and people needed every edge they could find. A new term appeared, Cheopseong-aeong. Pardon my French and hello to our Korean friends. It means employment surgery. Cosmetic work work done specifically to compete for jobs. Between 1997 and 2011, cosmetic procedures in Korea tripled, and the culture kept reinforcing the logic behind it. 93% of Korean companies required a photo on job application. Surveys have found that nearly half of HR managers admit to rejecting candidates based on appearance. China runs on a similar logic, just at a different scale. That's China, right? Women who had already felt the pressure of employer expectation firsthand were significantly more likely to plan a procedure. Researchers frame it as a rational economic calculation, a beauty premium, and an ugliness penalty that young women internalize before they even start working. And then social media took what used to be original pressure and made it universal. Around 2015, plastic surgeons in the US and Europe started noticing a shift. Patients were no longer bringing in photos of celebrities as reference images. They were bringing filtered selfies. Clinicians gave it a name: Snapchat dysmorphia. COVID made it worse. Millions of people spend hours staring at their own face on video calls, noticing every asymmetry they didn't like. So the demand side is clear. The supply side is where it gets interesting. Each country in Asia look at this demand and build a very specific machine to capture it. If this is your kind of content, hit subscribe. We put out videos like this every week, stories about how money and business actually works in Asia. If you've spent any time walking through Gangnam, you'll probably be as surprised as me. Plastic surgery clinics aren't in. They're advertised the same way other countries advertise gyms or restaurants. And the least I can say is that Gangnam runs like a production line. You walk into a clinic, a consultant scans your face, overlays it against a golden ratio template, and shows you a simulation of the result before you've even sat down. The most common package is double eyelid surgery, rhinoplasty, and V-line jaw reduction, often performed in a single session. Clinics call it a 3 combo. The whole thing takes a few hours and costs between $5,000 and $15,000 depending on the clinic. For many Korean families, the first procedure happens around age 18. Parents pay $1,000 to $3,000 for eyelid surgery as a high school graduation gift. They realize looks are important for success. After moving to Asia, I was surprised how normal these conversations are. People discuss procedures with the same casual tone people elsewhere discuss haircuts. K-pop plays a significant part of it. Some will say it is the engine. The entertainment agencies recruit trainees as young as 8, screen them on physical metrics, and shape them into a template that gets replicated across billboards and drama series. Korea built a cultural pipeline that exports this template globally and drives demand for the Korean aesthetic industry. China's cosmetic surgery market is following the same pattern. On Douyin and Xiaohongshu, influencers film their recovery diaries the same way food bloggers film recipes. And at the extreme end, cosmetic lengthening officially banned since 2006 after patients ended up disabled. CCTV has exposed underground clinics still performing it, and some patients now travel to Turkey to get around the ban. Yes, as you may already know, part of this industry started in Istanbul. The city became the leading destination for hair transplants worldwide for one simple reason: price. A follicular unit extraction that costs $6,000 to $12,000 in Western Europe goes for $2,000 to $3,500 in Turkey, often with the flight, hotel, and airport transfers bundled in. More than 500 clinics in Istanbul alone run this model. Hair was the gateway, but Turkish clinics expanded fast. Dental veneers became the second wave, turbocharged by TikTok. The infamous Turkey tease became a content niche of its own. Young Brits filming the before, during, after of getting a full set of porcelain veneers in Antalya. But clinics in Spain, Greece, and Eastern Europe are now offering similar procedures at comparable prices under EU regulation. Where Turkey was busy selling aesthetics, India focused on the complex stuff: cardiac surgery, orthopedics, oncology, organ transplants. The bypass graft at a top Indian hospital cost around $5,000, about 70 to 80% less than OECD prices. The market over there is valued at roughly $8 billion and is projected to triple within a decade. Basically, India is competing on saving your life at a fifth of the price. Last but not least, how can I not mention Thailand? The land of smile started with a procedure most countries wouldn't touch in the 1970s: gender reassignment. Thailand now has at least 100 qualified surgeons for the procedure at a third of US prices. From there, it expanded into everything: cosmetic, dental, orthopedics, cardiac, wellness. The government's 10-year strategy treats the entire healthcare sector as an export product. Now you understand, every one of these countries follow the same pattern: an insecurity, a surgical answer, a price advantage, and a government willing to build infrastructure around it. And when any industry scales that fast, the same things happen every time. The incentives shift from quality to quantity, and the people who pay the price are the ones who trusted the system to protect them. In South Korea, the problem is called ghost surgery. A clinic market is star surgeon, but one surgeon can only operate on so many patients a day. So the clinic overbooks. The star surgeon begins the procedure, works out partway through, and a less experienced doctor, sometimes an unqualified assistant, takes over while the patient is still sleeping. The patient wakes up believing their chosen surgeon did the whole thing. Most of the time, they never find out. But in September 2016, a 24-year-old university student named Kwon Dae-hee walked into a Gangnam clinic for the V-line jaw surgery. CCTV footage later showed that the booked surgeon left the room after about an hour. A different doctor entered. Kwon lost 3.5 liters of blood, more than 3 times what the medical staff reported. He was transferred to hospital that evening and died 49 days later. His mother fought so hard that South Korea became the first developed country to mandate CCTV in all operating rooms. Turkey's version of the problem looks different, but follows the same logic. 7 British citizens died in Turkey in 2025 following medical procedures. Between 2019 and March 2024, the total was 28. Infected wounds, sepsis, multiple organ failure. The UK Health Secretary called it another pressure the NHS doesn't need. Same story in China, the volume pushes demand underground. Cosmetic lengthening increasingly takes place in clinics that lack proper qualification and use coded language and social media to attract clients. Patients who end up with uneven legs, infections, or permanent nerve damage can't sue because the procedure they paid for doesn't legally exist. Some now fly to Turkey or India, where lengthening is legal and marketed to foreigners, creating a cross-border arbitrage built entirely on one country's prohibition and another's permissiveness. The industry grew faster than the regulation, and the people lying on the operating table are the last ones to know. The scalpel was just the beginning. South Korea figured out you don't need people to fly to Seoul to make money from their insecurities. You can ship the product to them. In 2025, Korean cosmetics exports reached $11.4 billion, up 11.8% from the year before. That made South Korea the second largest cosmetic exporter in the world, behind France and ahead of the United States for the first time. The pipeline is elegant. K-pop and K-dramas set the beauty standard. The standard creates demand for cosmetics. The cosmetics normalize a relationship with appearance that makes surgery feel like the next logical step. And the surgery industry feeds back into the entertainment machine that started the cycle. Each piece reinforces the others. And now, a new ingredient is entering the loop, and it's coming from the other side of the Pacific. 31 million Americans are currently taking GLP-1 weight loss medications. That's roughly 1 in 5 adults who have used it at some point. Yes, you know what it is. It's called Ozempic, Wegovy, or Mounjaro. In the UK, the number of monthly users is expected to double in 2026 compared to 2025. The weight comes off fast. What nobody warns people about is what can happen to their face if they lose too much weight too quickly. Rapid fat loss reduces volume in the cheeks, deepens the under eye area, contributes to loose skin around the jawline. Dermatologists give it a name: Ozempic face. That created a brand new patient population. People who never considered cosmetic surgery are now booking consultations to fix the side effects of a weight loss drug. The drug solves one problem and creates a market for 4 more. Each solution funds the next problem. The question is, what happens when an entire economy is built on the idea that the face you're born with isn't enough? Korea is 20 years ahead of everyone else on this curve. The rest of the world is just watching a preview of what will happen to them. Most industries want customers to live satisfied. This one survives when they don't, just enough to keep searching. A better nose, better skin, a better face, a better version of themselves. That's the real business behind beauty. If you got something out of this video, take 2 seconds and hit subscribe. And if you've been through any of this, I would genuinely like to hear about it. Drop it in the comments. See you in the next video.